Welcome, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's 12:15 on the dot, and might as well go ahead and get this going. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Terrence Lackren, aka the Optical Poet. In behalf of the Vision Council and Vision Expo shows, I want to welcome everybody to Coffee Talk. Hopefully you brought your breakfast beverage. I don't have my coffee today. I'm rocking a smoothie for the day. Hopefully you guys all brought your beverage of choice. We have a very special coffee talk today that I'm very excited about. Someone who's very special to me and so many in the industry. But let's go ahead first and talk about some of these housekeeping rules. Number one, as you can see, we chose to use Zoom as a platform. The reason why we did that is because you can do what you do see right now. You can see everybody, you can chat with people. We felt that Zoom would be a very interactive and give a nice community feel for this kind of meeting. It's not a webinar, it's just having coffee with somebody. But in order for this to really work, we ask that everyone please stay on mute. If you're not a mentor, who's Ed, or not a mentee, or you're not myself, who's a host, please do not unmute yourself. We do want questions though. So if you want to ask any of the mentors and mentees questions, go ahead and type your questions in the chat box. Or if you're brave and you want to actually come on camera, which a lot of people do, go ahead and go to the participants button on the bottom of your screen, click that, and then click raise your hand, and we'll unmute you to appear on camera as well. Now, just in case we do get disconnected for any reason, just log off and log back in 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes we're still not up and running, we will email you letting you know another date and time that we're going to do this. All right, so that's the end of my housekeeping announcements. Every so often on speed dating, on Coffee Talk, we do a speed dating, and we get a chance to hear from a very experienced, successful, independent retailer, and they take new retailers or future retailers under their wings and able to give them sound advice. Well, today we're going to speak with someone who's very special to me and to this industry, who has over 40 years now of experience with owning their retail environment. And that's no other than the one and the only Ed Beiner. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, hi, Terrence. Thank you very much for having me today for Coffee Talk, and also the Vision Council and all my peeps in the optical industry that decided to join us today. So thank you.
Awesome. Ed, can you just tell people who don't know you a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes. So I was born in Brazil, lived in the Caribbean, trained in the optical industry in Toronto, Canada. Actually, I was a licensed optician in Ontario. Moved to Miami and lived in Puerto Rico from 77 to 1980, worked for 4Eyes. In Puerto Rico, was their general manager down there in their JCPenney stores. Moved to Miami in 1980 with 4Eyes at that time. And after Miami was an interesting choice because I had a couple of other cities in my mind. I wanted to move to the continental US. So San Diego was on the view, Phoenix, Miami, and Atlanta. And after traveling at the age, at that point, I was 24 years old, traveling to these particular cities, I thought I found my home, and I was right here in Miami, Florida. It reminded me pretty much from my background, where I came from, Brazil, the ocean, the blue skies, the green trees, and the palms, and a wonderful community that was fairly mixed, and between Latins, Blacks, colored, and a society that was fairly interesting for my personality at that time. Worked for 4Eyes for approximately 6 months, was offered a raise of around $1.50 more an hour. I said, this isn't going to work for me, and decided I needed to open a store. And that was always actually my dream. I will add, my parents came from retail in the jewelry business. So I carried that deep in my soul all along. So by that $1.50 kind of, I realized I wasn't going to make a great living out of that, and decided to look for places in Miami where I could open a store. So went to family and friends, borrowed $50,000, which probably today means probably $125,000. Begged a little bit, got the money, believed in myself, believed in the city I was in, believed in the future that was being opened up with this opportunity, and worked pretty hard since then. I've been very fortunate to have had many lives in this industry. So I started with one store. I don't know if most people know this, but by 1988, I had so I mentioned earlier, I worked at JCPenney's. I also worked at the Optical. I also worked in Canada at the Eaton Center. Eaton's a department store in Canada. So my automatic move after having that one store was going to New York City and speaking with Bloomingdale's, because I wanted to open a chain of stores inside the Bloomingdale's department stores. After 2 years of convincing them, I finally opened one in Boca Raton, and we were supposed to expand throughout the whole United States. That few years later, there was a buyout by a gentleman out of Canada called Campo. The Bloomingdale's goes bankrupt. This is 88, 89 with a crash at the time. My dreams were shattered. I had opened the store. The store stayed open for 3 years. And the question was where to go next. From that point, I expanded into Coconut Grove, South Beach, and slowly developing the market here in the United States. I've been fortunate to be in the wholesale business. I was very successful with it, had a partner, sold the business to the partner in the year 2000 with a product, reading glasses, that I thought was a huge opportunity back then. It's still, it is today, especially at the high end. There were no high-end readers at the time. The choice was either you bought it at a drugstore or you came to an optical to buy a +2 that cost you $400. So with my specs at the time, I created a product to sell across the board, my own collection, the Edward Beiner collection that we carry in our stores and sold worldwide. By the way, my specs, we sold worldwide from Tokyo, Takashimaya, to China, to Saudi Arabia. I had 2 accounts that were very interesting in the Middle East, Europe. So it was a very successful opportunity. Brought in a partner in the year 2000. He was the owner and CEO of Persol Optics after he sold to Luxottica. From him, I picked up finances and how to run the business the proper way. And the tough part, the one nobody wants to talk about. And a great mentor. And we expanded to 12 stores and sold the company to New Look Vision out of Canada. I consider them my brothers up there. I'm very happy being the president of the organization here in the United States. We plan to expand with them. But as you can say, I have lived at least 5 lives in the industry, never doing the same thing. I am very, very, very thankful to the people I have met, to those that have helped me, and to an industry that has been very generous to myself, my family, and the friendships I have created. Thank you, Terrence.
Oh, no, that was great. That was great. I think I could listen to you talk the story, just start writing the book. So Ed, you're celebrating your 40th year in the industry this year, in 2020. And, it's amazing just the longevity you've had in this industry. I mean, you don't see that in any industry that much. So it's amazing that these mentees are able to learn from you, and we've done a lot of the speed dating. We've always had a mixture of people who have aspirations to one day own their business, and as well as people who have a new business. But for you with longevity, I thought the best thing to do is to choose mentees that are new business owners, so they can see how to take their business to the next level and achieve longevity that you have. So we have 4 amazing mentees that you're going to be able to really drop some wisdom on. So let's get to it. Let's go ahead and let's unmute mentee number 1. And if you can just go ahead and start talking when you're unmuted, mentee number 1, that'd be great.
Hey, Ed, my name's Gary.
Nice meeting you, Gary.
Nice meeting you too. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to grab some gems and some wisdom from you. So 40 years, it's so incredible. to think about that you have had all of these lives, and I know you've had a lot of success and you've had some learning opportunities. But in this 40 years, how would you describe your leadership style? And has it changed at all from 40 years ago up until today?
Yes, there is. So Gary, thank you. There is no doubt. You need to change. You need to grow. I like to almost say you need to be a chameleon. You can't stay the same. And as I earlier said, I had to learn the things I don't like. Sitting down and doing finances and spending my time looking at a financial statement or a balance sheet. You grow. I will tell you that you grow by also meeting people. It's not a solo trip. You know very well that I follow you. I call you for advice because I see you as the future, one of those that represents the future, and I ask you for advice more than once, as you well know. And I have reached out to many people during these 40 years. I look back and I think of people like the girls at LAI Works. I remember back then picking up the phone, Larry Light, Oliver Peoples, Marvin Freeman that just passed away a few months ago. These are people that you meet at a show and either you had a coffee, either you had a beer, and you spend an hour and you always picked up little items that just made you better every day. And that includes people outside of the industry. There were people that, be it the jewelry industry, be it the clothing industry, the fashion industry, what do they bring? Actually, they bring an awful lot to expanding our vision of the way we operate, the way we see the world. You see somebody making a porcelain pot out of clay. And really how different is that when you're sitting down and trying to design a pair of eyeglasses and you see that product, which unfortunately takes, I don't understand after 40 years, it still takes 6 months and a year to produce. But I would like to ask the manufacturers how we can change that. But that being said, you see the beauty of what comes into your hand and the passion that we bring when we touch these things. Sometimes it doesn't sell well, but it's our babies and we want to feel them and touch them. And I truly believe that people like you, some of the characters, and I say some of them like the Robert Marks, the Rick Morgenthal's, the Larry Sands of this world, I think they bring a passion that comes from the heart, from their soul. And I find even today, I see it in you, I see it in Julia, when I hear you all speaking, the passion is a driver. The question is, how do you harness that passion to create a business that can continue growing, and how can you continue changing and applying these new things so that you can stay in the industry as long as 40 years. And I just to finalize it, I jokingly say now, I started as a shopkeeper with one store. Today I am a president of a publicly held company representing them in the United States. Just here are my 12 stores, but now I'm part of the big corporate world, which is totally where I did not start, but I have joined. And it's pretty interesting. Most of my friends do it the other way around. So I hope I answered the question. The long way around, but
You did. Now, what about, you have such a big team. How do you encourage innovative ideas among your team?
The carrot and the stick. No, I'm kidding. I think that I have employees that have worked for us I have one that's 34 years. Most of our employees have been with us 10, 15 years. as an average. And most of them have that passion. Those that are there for a long time have the passion. They understand that this is a business about, at the high end particularly, nobody's coming in to buy a cheap pair of eyeglasses. They're coming in for an experience. It's always been like that for 40 years. They understand that they are creating relationships. Most of the stores, the people running these stores or the people working in these stores have clients that they like to work with. And you have to feel comfortable as you're growing your business that they're able to do that. And for them to be able to do that, they need to be able to go to shows. You have to take them, do a lot of training with your vendors, teach them about other industries. I always tell them, take a look at that building, take a look at the way that clothes was made, take a look at details. And even if you only catch 20, 30%, you don't have to understand 100%, but you start bringing it into your life. So that all being said, by doing that, you also train a lot of competitors. And I train most of my competitors in town are people that work for us. So, but you need to understand that that's the risk you take. And if you're afraid of doing that, you always need to believe that you're the best and you're always going to be the best. Even if you're not, you got to believe you are. And so you need to have the confidence that even if the competitor that you train and knows all your supposedly concepts, they can't execute it the way you do. It's like a chef. They can have sous chefs. You can teach them over and over, but at the end of the day is who you are, what you carry inside of you, and how you deliver that to your consumer, how you deliver that to your employees, and how best they can take that to their stores and to their customers.
Yeah, it's like we call it the secret sauce at Black Optical.
Yes, it is the secret sauce. And I think that's, thank you. In one line, I could have answered that. I thank you for doing that for me. It is the secret sauce.
So to kind of evolve on the innovative ideas, how do you prioritize which opportunities to pursue for business growth? You know, you've expanded retail, you've done wholesale, you've done frames, you've tried technology. How do you prioritize what to do next? You know, there's so many different ways you can go. And as you know, as a business owner, you can't do it all at once.
Terrence, I'm getting, these are difficult questions. I don't know what, I need a break. I'm starting to sweat.
You see why I had Gary go first.
The AC is working.
Hey, I told Terrence I wasn't going to throw any, if I'm going first, I'm not throwing softball questions.
I think that your first question was the right one. You know, which, but by the way, this was the right question too. It's a question of growth. So when I opened the first store, I realized that I had these products that were exclusive. Back in the 80s, the early 80s, it was really a particular time where vendors and store owners worked really hard hand in hand to create exclusivity. I particularly remember there was, even though the products weren't as luxurious as some are here today, but I think of Oliver Peoples and Ray Shadrow, by the way, another mentor of mine, how, you know, you created appointments, you created an environment that was rich. And so I realized that I had this one store. I needed to expand it, the concept, because there were other opportunities that people weren't seeing. And I understood that once I started going to the optical shows, by the way, which is really important. I recommend everybody to go to East, West, the competitors in Silmo, and Mido and Munich and et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to leave anybody out, but the point is you network. And I started seeing and meeting people like Marvin and people like Larry Light and Larry Sands and the Morgenthal's, and started to understand that there were pockets around Florida, in my case, where I could copy what I was doing. So I opened one store, I opened two stores, I opened three stores. Please ask me about the failures. I'll readily share them with you. There were a lot of those. But once I came to a point, we were at around 4 shops, if I'm not wrong, and very successful. I also realized that I wanted to design my own collection. Mm-hmm. And so in '94, I did a trip, interesting enough. Actually, that's 94, I went to Mito, did a little homework, 95. In 96, I got myself in an airplane, went to Singapore, went to Hong Kong, went to Shenzhen, by the way, where there were no roads back then. It was unbelievable. I mean, talk about backlands. There was absolutely nothing. Factories that were one day I'll explain that, but it was conditions that were clean, but something we didn't, us in the West, we didn't understand. So I started to understand there was manufacturing in China early on. And I started working with actually a group out of Japan, went to Tokyo, went to Fukui, and started manufacturing. And brought in some beautiful eyeglasses, including the my specs, the reading glasses that I brought in. I brought them in for my shop, realized I could wholesale. So these things just flow. It's a river. Think you're on a log and you just don't want to be bouncing too much against the rocks. And so you just let it go. Just go with your dreams. Go with that flow. Let it move. Don't fight it. Don't fight it. Sometimes you're going to hit a hard rock and it's going to hurt. Other times you keep on learning and improving. And so I can't explain any other way. I'm not going to tell you that I had this written plan that I follow step by step. There was a plan. There was a plan of growing. There was a plan of expansion. But a lot of it happened through this flow of meeting people, opportunities that knocked on the door, the world changing, taking opportunities, global opportunities that were taking place. Mm-hmm. I mean, here I am in Florida, Miami, for crying out loud, and I'm looking at Shenzhen in 1996. So I was going to Italy in 1984 to meet up. There were no Americans going there. Nobody went to Mito. There was a show the show in New York was at the Sheraton Hotel at the Hilton. You went to the basement. There were a couple of people that threw a table. They kind of, they put a mantle on this table and put the glasses on there. And that's how you bought. That was Vision East and Vision West. Actually, West was in California. So we've come a long, long ways as an industry, and we have all benefited from these experiences. So again, I'm giving you a long story, but it's a growth process. It's a fluid process. You need to be a chameleon. You need to keep on changing and growing the way you have done. So come out of Tulsa, go to Dallas, and you know very well, I follow you and I ask you for advice because you are much younger than I am.
Awesome. Well, Gary, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Terrence.
No, we're going to move on to our next mentee. So you have any words to wrap up?
I just want to ask him what keeps him up at night. That was my final question.
And you can't say it's me, Ed. I stopped texting. I stopped texting in the middle of the night a long time ago.
So it's Mark Axelrod and James Spina.
Good ones.
So as I mentioned earlier, you learn from really, you don't learn from the good times, you learn from the bad times.
Yep.
I closed a considerable amount of stores. I had so Bloomingdale's was a total dream. By the way, that was a dream that was very well planned and turned out to be very bad, totally out of my control because of the situation with Campo. Junk bonds, right? So I learned from that I never again wanted to be in an area where I couldn't control my environment, right? I was in a department store. They told us how to work and so on, even though I ended up going to malls later on. that kept me at night because, you know, how do I move forward that dream? And that was 1989. I opened a store in South Beach, and the best working hours in that store was when we opened. So we tried to open from 10 o'clock to 9 p.m. But we realized in the early days of South Beach, we actually started opening up the store at around 4 p.m. and stayed open until 4 a.m. Because as people were coming out of a club that was next door to us, they were purchasing eyeglasses. I was worried about the safety of my employees at the time. And, you know, we brought security in. But that store, we closed around 3 or 4 years later. Hurricanes kept me awake. We were hit in Florida in 1992 by Hurricane Andrew. Back then, it was a $25 billion disaster. I remember the choppers delivering food to us. My roof of my house was gone. And I had, at that point, 4 stores, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to maintain my employees and how we were going to come out of that. By the way, great experience as we go through all this today. Not to mention Katrina that came through here before, obviously, because of the devastation it did in New Orleans. But I could go on and on. Financial issues, borrowing from banks, economies. We depend in Florida a lot in the European economy, Europe and Latin America. So it's wonderful when the dollar is weak, right? Europeans come over here, they see a product that they love, that will all of a sudden cost you half the price. They all buy 4. So that works very well when the dollar is weak. You take a situation like today where the dollar is very strong and you don't have anybody buying 4 pairs. Actually, people need to think twice before buying. So you expand, you borrow money. There are things that are out of your control, economies across the world that we depend on. If you live in places like Florida, New York, California. And so finances, employees, training, growth, passion, how do you keep that flame going? And the list, I think, just goes on and on. But that all being said, the one lesson I have is I shut the doors on a Friday night. I try to stay disconnected pretty much until Sunday morning. And Sunday, I might or might not answer emails, but the day my week really starts on Monday. And that kept my sanity. I spent a lot of time. I recommend this to all of you that can. Most dinners with my kids. That was key. By the way, that kept me awake. And today I have a very close relationship with my children. They both moved into the house. First, I thought it was going to be for 2 months. Now I see furniture coming in from New York. That worries me. I don't think they're moving out. And Terrence knows them very well, both boys. So life is full of these moments of concern that you have control, or you think you have control of, but you don't. But your family is important. Spend time with them. That gives you the energy to go back. I have a wonderful relationship with my wife, thank God. And it's nice going back home and not talking business. We refuse to talk business until Monday. So those dinners, the family time together, gave me the strength, the ability to know that I could survive. I told my employees the first day we had a Zoom meeting when this started, COVID, and we closed all the stores. First thing I said, we're survivors. We know how to survive, and we will survive this too. So yes, I don't know what else to tell you, but you need to believe in yourself, and you need to have those around you believing in you too, because you need that strength. You can't fight those around you. You need to have them on your side.
Well said.
Does
Well
that,
said.
does that
Yeah,
help?
appreciate
Well
it.
said. Well said.
Well, I'm glad you're leaving.
Well, I'm gonna have to end this bromance fest going on right now.
Yeah. By the way, I'll call you up next week. I have a few questions about your website.
Who, me? Me?
Yeah. Yeah, you, Gary.
Awesome, Gary. Thanks so much. So I'm gonna move on to our next
Thank you.
mentee, and we have 30 minutes for 3 more mentees. So we're gonna keep things moving. A lot of people here that want to hear from you. So let's go on to mentee number 2. Mentee number 2, are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me.
What's going on, brother?
Just enjoying the day, huh?
Nice. Todd, tell a little bit about who you are.
My name is Todd Rogers Barbarian. I'm a optician of 28 years in the Boston area. Have had my own practice for 21 years, and I'm also an eyewear designer, Todd Rogers Eyewear.
Nice. And you know this guy, Ed?
You know, Mr. Beiner and I don't think we've ever met.
No, I never met him before either.
Ed, Todd, Ed.
It's always a good day when I get to see his face.
Our goal is always to keep away from Nate. That is our bad influence. That's it. Hi there, Todd.
Hello, sir. So,
Hello.
So I have a couple of questions. I was asked by Terrence to sit here and ask you a few questions, which I was very honored to do, or I am honored to do. And one of the big things that I was thinking of last night is they say behind every great man is an amazing woman. And I was wondering if you could tell us what the role Daniela played in your career was.
Oh, wow. That's going to take at least another hour, at least, Todd. So, very, very important question. So I talked about family. I talked about support. Let me give a little background about my wife, Daniela. I like to call her Daniela because she's a partner in business and in life. So I will tell you that I know Daniela since high school. We met in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So it's a long, long relationship.
Right.
And Daniela ended up in the film industry, and she speaks 4 languages fairly fluently, French and Italian, not to mention Spanish and obviously English. And when I moved to Miami in 1980, I said, look, honey, this is very nice. We meet a few times a year, but why don't you come and move to Miami? And she was interested. Actually, she had gone to the NYU, to the Film Institute at NYU. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know, let me give it a try because it looks like the film industry in Florida was growing. And it was growing because Europeans were coming over here. They loved filming Miami Beach the way it was, not the way it is today. They wanted to see the Miami Beach of the 50s and 60s so they could shoot within that environment. So with her ability of languages, she started attracting a lot of very famous, by the way, Italian companies in Miami. She worked, by the way, I got to give her a lot of credit with women. At that time, there were very few women directors doing commercials. And she circled herself with incredible female mentors, and she worked with a lot of women. Very successful, love what she did. We had our first child, David, in 1989. And I smile because he's a 30-year-old man now. that happened to have moved back to the house, but she continued on the business nonstop. The hours are grueling. 4 o'clock in the morning, set up sets, come back home 11 o'clock at night, and by 1993 we had our second child, Stephen. And I'll never forget the day Stephen must have been a few months old or a year old. She went to do a commercial in Key Biscayne in Miami. It was a sunrise. And the shot had to be perfectly done in such a way that the sun, the camera got the sun in the right place in the right moment. And as the sun started coming up, a cloud came right in front of it, and the director had a fit. Started screaming, was out of control, and they had to come back a few days later to reshoot again. They went over budget, but she came home that day, and she looked at me and says, you know, it's time to smell the coffee. I have 2 kids. I have a family. I want to raise them, and I want to be there for them. That, by the way, included, let me be there for my husband, because at the same time, I was picking her brain on how to advertise, how to market, how to do certain things. And as I mentioned earlier, if you take a look at 1994, 96, when I started the wholesale business, it could not have been done without her. She helped me with the packaging. She helped me. I came out with the folding design of the eyeglasses. Her coordination, by the way, her production capabilities all came into play, and they still do come into play. That's the big conversations. It's not by, you know, she looks at the acetate. Sometimes she looks at the hinge and says, what's the deal with the hinges? You know, but let me tell you how to organize, and let me tell you how to keep certain things in perspective. So that partnership has gone on. That partnership has evolved. That partnership has grown. As my partner, we went from the wholesale, we sold the wholesale, we went into, by the way, I sold the wholesale, but I also became a distributor for Golden Wood in the United States, along with my Edward Beiner collection up to 2006. Wow. Daniela's, her mentor, the one love in her life in the optical industry as a mentor was Doré Shadrow. And whenever we get a chance, we still see Doré. And Daniela picked up all the elegance of how to set up a booth, how to set up a hotel room, how to do things. And Doré's name, if we could create a little statue for Doré in the house, I think Daniela would have it. You know, I went more with the guys, Daniela went more with the girls, but I accept that, and I see it as all fair play. But that is, and it requires a lot, Todd, of, I know you work with your wife all the time too. Yep. I see you guys in action. It requires an incredible amount of flexibility and growth. By the way, it's great for the marriage too if you avoid talking business at home. And that was one key ingredient we always did. It was all about the kids at home, about school, and not about the disagreements we might have had or not have, or agreements at work. Does that answer?
That's I love it. Perfect. But can you do me a favor? Next time you see Lee, can you tell her about not talking business at home?
I will tell Lee. Lee is intense.
Yeah. All right. So my last question. This is going to be a quick one. Okay. Yeah. So is it okay if I have one more question?
Yeah. One more question, Todd. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. So, so what makes Ed Beiner get up in the morning that brought him to who he is today?
Every day is a new day. Every day is an experience. And I will tell you that I don't do well when I don't like things. And when I say I don't do well, I always look for an exit strategy, because life is short. You know, I'm about to turn 65 in 3 weeks from now. If you were to ask me, thank you. If you were to ask me, it feels, I don't know, like 15 years have gone by. I've been only in this business 15 years. I have a hard time saying 40, because I've had a lot of fun and time goes by quick. Do not waste your time with bad people. Do not waste your time with negative people. Don't waste your time with negative energy. Don't waste your time with things out of your control. Just wake up in the morning, passionately love what you do. As I explained to Gary, you got to carry that flame inside of you. Don't let anybody, you have that too, Todd. I've seen you, all of us that are in this industry that I know have that flame. That flame's got to continue burning. I wake up now in the morning, I am as energized as I was back in 1980, that March of 1980 when I opened my store.
That's beautiful.
Actually, it was March of 81. I've been in Florida 40 years. So it's 39 years, Terrence. I gave you false information.
That's all right. I'll take it. Awesome, Todd. Thanks so much. That was really good questions. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Good talking to you, Ed.
I want to let you know, Ed, that Daniela logged in on the tail end of you singing her praises.
Thank God. Thank God I feel it. Thank God.
So you owe her 10 minutes of praise when you get home later on today, FYI.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. Trust me. I'm going to hear. I forgot to say something.
Don't worry, Daniela. I have this all recorded. I'll send this to you recorded, Daniela. All right.
Do not send it.
Let's move on to mentee number 3. Mentee number 3, are you there?
I am here.
Oh, Calvin from North Carolina. What's going on, brother?
Man, just hanging out, enjoying a great Zoom meeting with Ed Beiner and this great crew. What's up?
Nice. I'm good. We're good. What do you tell everybody who you are and a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so I'm an optician of about 18 years. Opened my first practice 16 years ago or so, and have grown to 3 locations now here in North Carolina. 3 totally different brands, but excited to get some to pick Ed Beiner's brain.
Nice.
Good to see you, Ed.
Calvin, nice seeing you. I am very disappointed with your background. I expected flames in the back there. You know I love that. So, trees, I'm used to that, but flames coming from my back, no. So,
this is great. This is great.
Yes, go ahead.
Calvin, Ed, you guys have about, timing-wise, about 8 minutes for your date. So.
Okay, I've got just a couple of questions. This is great. Ed, so as you grew from 1 practice, 2 practices, 3 practices, and beyond, what are some of the infrastructure challenges and management challenges you faced, and how did you overcome those? What can you teach us?
Terrence, you have somebody else, please? No. Really, Calvin? So, yeah, I think the challenges are there every day. I think that's what makes you grow again. Personnel is always the number one. We hear this over and over again. How do you have great people? How do you find people that can communicate? As I'm speaking to the group out here, there are jobs out there. There are opportunities out there. We all need to better ourselves at whatever we do. So finding people that understand people, I think, is key. I always say I'm not in the eyewear business. I'm in the people's business. Being a great listener, a good listener, when it comes to your customer, that's important. When it comes to your employees, that's important. So you can react properly, and sometimes you need to read between the lines. But I would say employees are the number one challenge, especially when you have, we have 44 people, 36 are in the stores. They're your partners. They need to be your partners. And aligning with them is, I think, a key ingredient. The number 2 challenge I will add is landlords. That is one difficult crowd. I'm being nice. And just because, especially in malls, the way we deal with them, we need to report numbers. Most people that have stores in malls know that. You need to report numbers. And, the way they approach rents is not, well, let's increase it another $1,000 for the next 4 years a month. Is, oh, well, you did so well. Well, now we're going to double your rent. So, but when the years go bad, they aren't there for that. At that point is, where's my check? So landlords are a big challenge. So staffing, landlords, manufacturing, Todd does it, and many of us do. The process is very slow. I do 3D printed eyewear right now, mostly for our stores. I don't wholesale. The process is much quicker, 3 months. But, acetate is still, in my opinion, is like silk. It's got a special feel to it, a well-done acetate. But it still surprises me when you do a design and you take products like JMM that require a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, particular tools that come with it. I find it interesting that we still, in 40 years, 39 years, you know, maybe we cut a month out of the production process. So I think those are the bigger challenges out there. Technology is changing. By the way, when it comes to manufacturing, there's companies like Topology that you can custom make a pair of eyeglasses, and you know, we're using them now to really manufacture a pair of glasses and be able to deliver to the customer in 3 weeks a pair of custom-made eyewear. But that was frustrating. The vendors not having inventory when you need it, that is a process too. So you got to battle because you're losing opportunities, you're losing sales, especially when you have more than 1 or 2 stores. So I think that I would put those, I'm probably missing a few, but up there, those are the things that cross my mind first.
Great, thank you.
Did I miss any?
I'm glad you brought up the manufacturing. No, that's a great answer, Ed. Thank you very much. Sorry to give you a tough one. I'm glad you brought up manufacturing and wholesale. How important to your growth and success retail do you believe was having your own Edward Beiner collection?
So I think it's very important, especially in the world we're in today, right? Mono brands are really key. It wasn't always that way, but it's wonderful having your own product. It gives the consumer a chance to understand that you're a design house. And I think that becomes part of the marketing. It's not only about turning the pieces, it's about being able to tell that story and how you made it and where it came from. And we always had close relationship. We never used the middleman. So we always had a close relationship with the factories. And being able to it's like a tailor. You're explaining, you're measuring, and you're explaining how you got the material and how it was cut and why you picked particular hinges and why this particular acetate, even though we all repeat ourselves with Acheron and Mazzucchelli over and over again, but the consumer really doesn't sometimes understand that. So that's a great, I think it's a great story. It becomes more marketing than actually selling pieces. At the end of the day, with the quantities we need to do, which is part of the problem also, the minimums, when you don't have enough stores, is you do need to turn pieces or else you start losing a lot of money. Or you can do what Mr. Ogura does and bring in a considerable amount, and you do that, Calvin, too. Bring in a lot of products that nobody else carries, so you got a story to tell. That kind of almost put that with the idea of making your own product.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I've got. Thanks for your time. Yes, Ed.
Perfect, Calvin. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. This is good timing. So we're going to now, this is your last date, actually, for the day. We're going to mentor number 4, or final mentor, mentee, excuse me. Mentee number 4, are you there?
I'm here.
Nate.
Hello, Ed. How are you?
I don't speak to Nate. That's one person I don't talk to.
So Ed, I just pulled out a program from one of the group meetings, and I realized that May of this year is our 10-year anniversary being friends. I've known you for a little while.
Congratulations, as you do, and I've known you. Thank you. You've been a gift in my life. Thank you.
So I did want to ask some business questions. So if you can grab Daniela and Omar for me.
By the way, let me leave. Let me bring them both in. They run the business.
I know that you're the face, but I mean the people.
By the way, Daniela, is Daniela still there, Terrence?
Daniela is here. She is here.
You can ask Daniela the question, Nate.
And another little tidbit that I picked up. You might have to explain to half of the people watching what JCPenney's is, because there are a lot of people that don't even know what JCPenney's is.
I'm quitting. You know Sears? By the way, the company that just went bankrupt a couple of weeks ago. So yes, it was a lease department by Four Eyes. So Four Eyes used to have a store inside JCPenney's, and that was it. So yes.
So Terrence, a little bit about me. My name's Nate O'Gara. I own Eyes on Fremont in Seattle, Washington. Started in 1996. I was actually born in 1981, Ed.
Terrence, I told you I don't speak. I do not speak to Nate.
So you didn't realize, Ed, I told the gentleman that this is going to be 2 parts business and 1 part roast. Well, this is all the 1 part roast all in one date.
Yeah. Calvin,
Todd. I'm feeling the heat. I'm feeling the heat.
But I think time's probably getting short. So Ed, on a more serious note, your 2 boys are incredible. I've interacted with David historically in the past. As you know, I have 2 boys. So you kind of touched on it with Gary, the balance between work and personal life. How do you have an optical store and raise such great human beings?
Daniela probably could answer that. I think that, look, it's a commitment. It's like the business. It's a commitment you make. And you have to stick to the commitment. Just like we know we have to wake up at whatever time it is in the morning to go to work, and you need to be, when the doors open, you need to be there. You need to make that commitment to see your family. Now, I am assuming, as I was, that I was in Miami and I wasn't living on an airplane going from city to city. So let me be fair to all of those that travel long distances. Let me be fair to everybody that's out there that has that didn't have the opportunity to be and every day with their kids in the same city, choosing basically the hours. The advantage, by the way, of having your own business is you can make that decision. And if you decide to stay open until 10 o'clock as we do, you then need to make the decision that you're not the one that's going to be doing it. And it might cost you a few dollars. And it has cost us a few dollars to make that decision. So it becomes a family decision just as much as we make the business decisions. And, today, interesting enough, I have to say it's not only about Daniela and I. You need to have wonderful human beings at the other end. So I must say that the kids are incredible, and I do go to advice for advice to both of them. And it's not only been in the last 2 years or 3 years, even 10 years ago. There are things I wanted to know, and I would go to them. And so they're interesting. The growth of a business and the growth of your family are very similar. Your kids are never the same. So that child you spoke to when he was 8 years old is a different child at 12, and you need to adjust the conversation and the mentality to that 12 years old. So your 8-year-old business is not the same as your 12-year-old business. And that 15-year-old son is not the same as the 30-year-old son, and you need to change the conversation and adjust to a new relationship. And it works exactly the same way with your business. So it's an effort. It's hard work. And I credit Daniela for 90% of it, because she reminds us all that we need to do that.
Ed, thank you. I mean, as you know, as I always tell you, one day when I grow up, I want to be Mr. Beiner.
And I always say, if I have a second life, I'm coming back like you. Or Gary, by the way, or Gary.
Terrence, that was really the big question that I had for Ed.
That was awesome, Nate. That was a really powerful question. All you guys did an amazing job. So Ed, I know you were expecting to mentor new business owners, but I feel like these are newish business owners compared to the 40 years that you've given this. 39 years. I would need to update my marketing now for this. Before I get sued for false information. But we wanted to not just roast you, but we all 5 of us wanted to just show you how much we appreciate you, and how much we all look up to you in this industry. And, here's to many, many more years. If you choose to spend as many more years in this industry, but we'll always remember and cherish you. Ed was actually, quick story, 4 years ago when I joined this industry, someone said, start getting to know independent retailers. So I had this list, and I picked up the phone like, hey, this is Terrence from Vision Expo, click. hey, this is Terrence from Vision Expo, click. Oh, we'll have him call you back. And then one day my phone rang and it's like, hi, this is Ed Beiner. I'm like, wait a minute, he called me back. And we had about a 30-minute call, didn't we, Ed, that first conversation. And honestly, that 30-minute call opened my eyes to so much in this industry. So we really appreciate all you do, all you're doing, and all that you will continue to do in this industry. And we appreciate Daniela as well. We know that, as you told me when we first time met, you said she knows more about this business than you do.
So I want to thank you very much, Terrence. Thank you all that are here. A lot of you, as I mentioned before, I've learned from this group. And all I can say is thank you so much. And see you guys at some show real soon. And if you come to Miami, come and visit. So, and by the way, Terrence, I answer all the phone calls and I answer every email because you never know who could be at the other side of that line. So I'm very fortunate that I met you.
No, good lesson, Ed. So as Ed would say, eyes forward, everybody. And here's to the rest of 2020, right, Ed? Everybody, there you go. Thank you, everyone, for enjoying and attending this coffee talk. There should be a poll coming up to give us some feedback about what other topics you want to see us explore in Coffee Talk. Yep, there it is. So please do me a favor and go ahead and fill that out. Very, very special announcement. Next week, because of the holiday week, we will not be having Coffee Talk next week. So please do not come on here next Wednesday at 12:15, but we will be back the following week on July 8th for a very special Coffee Talk for a very interesting topic with our good friend, Marge Axelrod, who will be leading that discussion. So look out for more information regarding that. So we are signing off now, everybody. I know Ed has a meeting with Canada, so he has to grab his passport and hop on that Zoom call with the Canadians. So take care, everybody. We're signing off, and thank you, Todd.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. So
thank you, Terrence. Thank you, Vision
thank
Council.
You. No, this is great, Ed. Appreciate it. This is, did you expect? Let's unmute Nate and Gary and all
thank
the
you, guys.
if we can, guys.
Thank you for being there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
We wouldn't miss it for the world, Ed.
Not at all.
I'll get even with you all later. Don't worry.
Ed Beiner squirmed just a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Oh man, that's great. This was great. This is awesome. Take care. All right, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh man,
that was fun. Thank you.
That was fun,
thank
right?
You,
no, that was good. That was good. You know, it was a really cool conversation. It was like having 5 speed dates at once. You know? Liv, do you need anything else from me, or am I free to sign off?
You are free to sign off, my friend.
Oh, great. My Uber Eats person just arrived. This is probably perfect timing.
Oh, nice. Well, enjoy your lunch.
Having
Thanks,
falafel.
guys.
All right, take care, Gary. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Olivia, want me to get the poll?
Got it. Okay, I have copies. We are good. We'll end the meeting.
Okay. Let me know if you